Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin, and I have a great guest, Rick Harrison. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Little bit of job here. I started buying and selling stuff. Basically educated myself. And then I'd always been buying and selling stuff. My dad had a little coin shop, and I wanted a pawn shop.
For more than 15 years, Rick Harrison has been the star of one of the most popular reality shows on TV. But behind his confident image, Rick has gone through many personal losses that would be too much for most people to handle. What really happened to Rick when the cameras were off? What challenges has he faced that the millions of Pawn Stars fans don't know about? Join us as we take a look at the sad story of a man whose success has been overshadowed by profound tragedy.
Want to find out how much it was worth.
Thing looks crazy. What is it?
It's a black widow.
Is it poisonous?
Planning a burial while planning his wedding. In November 2024, Rick Harrison was meant to be thinking about his wedding and starting fresh. He had just gotten engaged to Angie Polushkin, a nurse from Las Vegas who made him feel happy. Again, after a lot of tough times. They were planning their wedding for early 2026, and Rick was trying to move on after the sad things that had happened to his family. For a short time, it looked like Rick's luck was finally getting better and good days were coming. On November 6, 2024, Rick got the sad news that his mother, Joanne Harrison, had passed away at the age of 85 in a hospital in Las Vegas. She was the person who raised him, helped him through his struggles with epilepsy when he was a kid, and supported him as he grew his business. Now, instead of getting ready for his wedding, Rick had to plan another funeral, adding her name to the list of people he had lost recently. The circumstances surrounding Joanne's passing were kept private by the family, who requested respect during their time of grief. No official cause of her demise was released, and Rick did not immediately address his mother's passing on social media. The silence spoke volumes about the depth of his pain and his desire to process this loss away from the public eye that had witnessed so many of his other tragedies. Joanne's passing was especially difficult because there was still tension between him and his mother, and it was unclear if they had made up before she passed or if she still held on to the strong feelings she had against him. Only the family knew the answer to that. However, the fact that she passed away so soon after their issues made Rick's sadness even more complicated. Losing his mother meant that Rick no longer had any parents. At 59 years old, he became an orphan, without the help and support of the two people who had known him the longest. This loss happened when he was still dealing with other tough situations, and it felt like everything was being taken away from him slowly. But as painful as losing his mother was, it wasn't even the worst tragedy Rick had faced in 2024. The lawsuit from his own mother. Before Joanne Harrison passed away in November 2024, she had dealt Rick one of the most painful betrayals he had ever experienced. In February 2022, his 81-year-old mother filed a lawsuit against him in Nevada's Clark County District Court, making allegations so shocking that they made headlines around the world. According to the legal filing, Joanne claimed that Rick had taken advantage of her when she was at her most vulnerable, manipulating her into signing over her interests in the family business shortly after she woke up from a coma. The lawsuit painted Rick as a villain who had betrayed his own mother for money. Joanne alleged that Rick had cut her out of trusts and companies, that he was hoarding the contents of a safe filled with money and silver, and that he had stopped sending her the payments she was entitled to from her late husband, Richard's share of the gold and silver pawn shop and related businesses. To protect what she believed were her assets, she filed for a restraining order to prevent Rick from selling off family property. Rick strongly denied all the accusations, telling the Las Vegas Review-Journal that he believed his mother was being manipulated by other people who were trying to get money from her. He portrayed himself as the victim of outsiders who were taking advantage of his elderly mother's vulnerability, saying that people were messing with her head for their personal gain. But to the public watching this family drama unfold, it was impossible to know who was telling the truth. The pain of being sued by his own mother was still raw when Rick faced another professional blow that threatened everything he had built: the end of Pawn Stars and his television career. In February 2025, Rick Harrison lost something that had defined his life for over 15 years. Pawn Stars, the show that had made him a household name and transformed his modest pawn shop into one of the most famous stores on the planet, went on indefinite hiatus after its contract with the History Channel expired. Making matters worse, Rick's son Corey had already made it clear that he had no intention of returning to Pawn Stars, even if the show were revived. Corey told reporters that he was done playing a character on television and had moved to Tulum, Mexico, to start a new chapter away from the cameras and the pressure of fame. The fact that his own son wanted nothing to do with the show anymore added another layer of loss to an already painful situation. Rick and Chumley launched a podcast called Pawn After Dark in February 2025. But it wasn't the same as having the television show. The podcast wasn't affiliated with the History Channel, suggesting that the network and the cast had definitively parted ways. But while losing his show was painful, it was nothing compared to the tragedy that had struck just over a year earlier. His fourth marriage collapsed after only 2 years. In 2023, Rick Harrison's fourth marriage came to an end, adding another failed relationship to a pattern that had defined much of his adult life. He had married Amanda Palmer in 2021, hoping that this time would finally be different, and that he had found someone with whom he could build a lasting partnership. But just 2 years later, they separated, leaving Rick to deal with yet another divorce and the emotional devastation that comes with watching a marriage fall apart. The divorce from Amanda came at a particularly difficult time, when Rick was already dealing with stress from his mother's lawsuit and the ongoing grief from losing his father in 2018. The accumulation of personal problems was overwhelming, and the failure of another marriage added to Rick's growing sense that maybe he was destined to lose everything he tried to hold on to, no matter how hard he fought to keep it. Friends who knew Rick during this period said he was deeply unhappy and struggling with depression. Rick was feeling really sad because he had a lot of stress from filming Pawn Stars, problems with his family because of his mom's lawsuit, and the loneliness from another failed marriage. Even though he was famous and had a lot of money, his personal life was a mess, and he couldn't seem to make it better no matter how hard he tried. After his divorce from Amanda, Rick found himself single again as he was getting close to 60 years old, and he started to wonder if he would ever find the true love that he had been searching for all this time. But this personal failure, as painful as it was, would soon be overshadowed by losses that made his romantic troubles seem insignificant in comparison. The show became his source of pain. As Rick Harrison faced many personal losses in his life, Pawn Stars turned into a mix of feelings instead of the happiness it used to give him. The show that made him well known and changed his business also recorded some of his hardest times on camera, showing his sadness to millions of viewers. Production on Pawn Stars. Season 23 had already begun when Rick received the news of Adam's passing in January 2024. While the family made the decision not to address Adam's passing on the show, Rick still had to show up to work, smile for the cameras, and evaluate items brought in by customers as if his world hadn't just been shattered. Before Adam passed, the show began to make Rick feel sad because it reminded him of his dad in both good and tough ways. Watching old episodes with the old man showed Rick his father when he was healthy and joyful, which made it even harder for him to accept that he was gone. For Rick, seeing Pawn Stars change from something that made him happy and proud to a reminder of everything he had lost was just another way that sadness impacted his life. Even his greatest professional achievement had been tainted by the losses he had endured, leaving him with complicated feelings about the show that had defined so much of his identity. The phone call that changed everything. On January 19, 2024, Rick Harrison faced a loss that was harder than any other he had experienced. That day, he got a phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. It was news that would change his life forever and leave a deep sadness in his heart. His son, Adam Harrison, was found unresponsive in a house in Las Vegas, and even though emergency workers tried to help him, they could not bring him back. Adam was only 39 years old when he died, and Rick's life would never be the same again. Adam was the son that most Pawn Stars fans never knew about. Unlike his brother Corey, who worked at the pawn shop and was often on the show, Adam decided to live his life away from the cameras and the attention that followed his family everywhere. He worked as a plumber and tried to create a calm life for himself and his son, Colton, away from the spotlight that his father and brother were in. The Clark County Coroner's Office later confirmed the cause of passing that Rick had worried about. Adam had passed from accidental fentanyl and methamphetamine poisoning, the dangerous mix of substances that has taken the lives of many Americans each year had taken another life, and this time it was Rick's oldest son. According to reports from the New York Post, Adam had recently gotten out of jail and was staying in a guest house when he passed away, indicating that his last days were filled with ongoing challenges and uncertainty, even with everyone trying to support him. Rick later opened up about Adam's battle with substance overuse in an emotional interview with Graham Bensinger, revealing details that broke the hearts of everyone who heard them. Rick explained that Adam had started having substance overuse problems in his 20s, and that Rick had sent him to rehabilitation so many times he had lost count. Each time Adam would emerge clean and healthy, and Rick would feel hopeful that his son had finally beaten the addiction that was destroying his life. But then Adam would relapse, falling back into the same destructive patterns, and Rick would watch helplessly as his son's life spiraled further out of control. With every relapse, Rick was forced to face a devastating truth. He didn't know how to escape. How much more could a father take before everything finally broke? The substance overuse fight. Rick sent Adam to rehab again and again. He tried tough love and support, consequences and forgiveness, everything he could think of to help his son break free from addiction. Nothing worked. In the days following Adam's passing, Rick shared his grief on Instagram, posting a heartfelt tribute with the caption, "You will always be in my heart. I love you, Adam." The words couldn't begin to capture the depth of his pain or the magnitude of what he had lost. The family set up an education fund for Adam's son Colton, ensuring that at least Adam's child would have opportunities, despite losing his father at such a young age. Friends and colleagues reached out to offer support, and even President Donald Trump called Rick to express his condolences. Rick has channeled some of his grief into advocacy, becoming an outspoken voice calling for tougher action against the fentanyl crisis that is devastating American families. He has called drug dealers terrorists and compared the tragic toll from overdoses to nuclear bombs going off in multiple cities. He has praised efforts to secure the border and crack down on fentanyl smuggling, supporting policies that he believes might save other families from experiencing the loss he has suffered. His passion comes from a place of deep personal pain as he tries to create some meaning from a tragedy that otherwise feels completely senseless. When the cameras turn off and the speeches stop, how does a father keep moving forward while carrying a heartbreak that never goes away? The forever heartbreak. No amount of advocacy work or public statements can bring Adam back or ease the pain of losing a child. Rick talks about thinking about Adam every single day, about carrying the weight of that loss with him wherever he goes. He tries to focus on positive memories and to be grateful for the time they had together. But the guilt and the grief are always there, just beneath the surface, ready to overwhelm him at unexpected moments. The passing of Adam Harrison is the loss that Rick will never fully recover from. the tragedy that overshadows every other loss he has experienced. He has lost his father, his mother, his brother to estrangement, his son Corey to distance, his marriages, and his television show. But none of those losses compare to the horror of burying his own child, of knowing that Adam's life ended far too soon and wondering forever if there was something more he could have done to save him. Adam's tragedy was the loss that changed everything for Rick Harrison, transforming him from a successful businessman with a complicated personal life into a grieving father, trying to survive in a world that will never feel right again. It was the loss that made all the other losses seem even heavier, adding weight to burdens that were already almost too much to bear. And it was the loss that showed Rick that no amount of money or fame can protect you from the cruelest blows that life can deliver, and that sometimes everything you love can be taken away from you no matter how hard you fight to hold on to it. Which of Rick Harrison's losses do you think has been the most devastating? How do you think he's managed to keep going after losing so much in such a short period of time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it,